Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I'm previewing the upcoming Tier 10 German light tank, the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. And this vehicle is probably going to be one of, if not the fastest tanks in the game, also with the highest view range. And if you also like the medium kind of sniping playstyle, then this vehicle has the best sniping capabilities of the brand new Tier 10 light tanks. Hang around, I've got some ace tank gameplay coming right up after we give a full rundown of the statistics of this vehicle, show out some of its more novel features, and see how it stacks up compared to its Tier 10 light tank competition. So here we have the tank in question. On the left, the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, the T100 LT, the Soviet light tank, the WZ1321, the Chinese light tank, the Sheridan representing America, and finally the French AMX 13105. Immediately we notice that the DPM is right in the middle of the bunch at 2340 base, which is better than the T100 LT, which I previously reviewed, but worse than the WZ1321 and significantly worse than the Sheridan's awesome DPM, well, at least for a light tank. The Panzerwagen uses 105mm main armament, which is the same in caliber to the WZ1321, the Sheridan, and also the AMX 13105. But of course, remember, the Sheridan does have the option of that 152mm, and so expect to hit really hard 390 alpha damage. That's as good as any 105mm on a Tier 10 medium tank. The penetration on this vehicle is also a cut above the T100 LT, which I previously reviewed, at 242mm, and also it gets some pretty decent premium rounds, 280mm of penetration, which is certainly way better than the abysmal premium rounds on the T100 LT, which only have 248mm of penetration. The shell velocity on its standard APCR rounds is also really nice, 1,200 meters, but remember that pales compared to the Tier 10 medium tanks. And one thing that is rather disappointing about this tank is it can only carry 30 rounds of ammunition, giving you a potential damage of 11,700. And so if you want to end up taking a few extra high explosive shells, or maybe you just miss a few rounds, you might start to run out by the end of the battle, or at least be forced to fire premium rounds when you could just use the standard APCR. Now onto the gun handling. It's got awesome aim time, 1.9 seconds, only beaten by the Sheridan, and it has the best accuracy of any of the Tier 10 light tanks, and significantly so. At 0.36, this is as accurate as the worst Tier 10 medium tanks, the SDB-1 and the Object 430. But it's massively better than the T100 LT, the WZ1321, and significantly better than the Sheridan and the AMX 13105. However, dispersion-wise, this vehicle has the worst dispersion while moving and the joint worst while turning the turret. And so that does mean that unless you're completely stationary, this vehicle's aim time is just a touch above the other vehicles in practice. Depression-wise, however, this vehicle is top-notch, 10 degrees, double that of the Soviet and the Chinese light tanks, equal to the Sheridan, and slightly better than the French 8 degrees of gun depression. So now on to the mobility of the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, and this is where this tank excels. 75 kilometers an hour top speed limit, making it the second fastest tank in the game, when the RU-251 has its top speed limit nerfed by 10 kilometers an hour. And this gives you just a bit of an edge over the T100 LT and a significant one over the other three Tier 10 light tanks. In addition to this vehicle can go backwards faster than many super heavies can go forwards at 25 kilometers an hour. And when you combine this with the fact that the vehicle's power to weight ratio is an excellent 44 horsepower per ton, and it gets better ground resistances than the T100 LT, massively so on medium, then this vehicle should actually probably pip the T100 LT, even though it does have a slightly higher power to weight ratio. And so, while remember that all statistics on the test server can change, the crown to the fastest high tier tank in the game is going to go to the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. Now onto the armor, and this is where this tank falls behind its competition a little bit. 30 at the front of the hull, 30 at the side of the hull, and 8 at the rear at the hull, and 20-20-20 on the turret. And that means that the front of this tank is getting overmatched by all 91mm caliber guns, and most of the side is going to get overmatched by 61mm caliber guns. And wow, hope you don't get shot in the back. 8mm of armor isn't going to protect you from any high explosive rounds, let alone armor piercing ones. And this 8mm of armor continues all over the top of the tank. You do not want to get shot by artillery, or you are going to be feeding them your 1,600 hit points, which when you think about it isn't too bad. It's got the joint top tier 10 light tank hit points along with the Sheridan, but that's only a slight advantage advantage over the other vehicles. Finally, onto one of my favorite aspects about this tank, and that is the view range. 430 base meters view range, meaning that if you have an excellent crew and you use coated optics on this tank, you're going to go way above 500 meters view range. And 430 meters base means that you can give up the coated optics to use vents to just make everything else about your tank 2.5% better, while still certainly have your view range in the high 400s. And while there's no doubt that the camouflage rating on this vehicle doesn't come close to competing with the T100 LT, it is beyond doubt one of the best scout tanks in the game. And if you like to be fast and light up your opponents for your team, then you might want to look no further. But anyway, I think that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's see how it performs in some gameplay. So here we go, rolling out on Fisherman's Bay, and there are a lot of light tanks on either team, so you know there's going to be a big battle in the middle for the supremacy of that ridgeline, which is oh so important for the map. But let's focus on the mobility of the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen here. 75 up the slope, 75 up the slope, 70, now just dipping down to 70, but still going up that fairly medium gradient there at 70 kilometers an hour is absolutely crazy mobility due to the great ground resistances, especially on medium ground resistance, as you would expect this hill to be. The power to weight ratio excelling, and it allows us to get up there and put a shot into the T100 LT before we manage to get stuck by the enemy team. Now there's T100 LT going around the corner, AMX 13105 puts one into him, and I finish him off. And 348 damage. I still haven't quite got over the fact that these tier 10 light tanks pretty much have tier 9 medium guns. And that it just allows them to be so much more competitive than you ever could be in your tier 8 light tanks as previously. Oh, I wanted to get a shot into the 13105 there, but it looks like I cut off the 13105 on my own team, and so he evades the first shot. Will he be able to evade the second one? Oh, looks like he will do. How unfortunate. I need to be aiming just a touch a little bit better here if I want to be taking out the tier 10 French light tank on the enemy team. Will he be coming around the corner? Yeah, there we go. Good shot right into his tracks, also entering his tank. And now I want to progress. We can see that my team have made their way down the west, and so I want to try and help out by adding a little bit of view range from here. And if I add a little bit of view range for there, maybe it'll allow my artillery to do some good stuff. But hopefully I can start to take out the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen on the enemy team. Is he coming up? A little bit of tunnel vision by him there, and we punish him pretty hard. 361 damage dealt. Is he going to get a shot into me? Oh, he does, that pesky little fellow. Oh, I take another 2 hits. How absolutely outrageous. And this WZ1321 seems to want to be able to take me out. But we track him, hold him still, also damage him, and that allows the FV4005 on my team to be able to finish him off. Now, one thing I want to highlight as well is take a look at the top of this tank. How crazy is the fact that the gun comes through the roof when you try to press the vehicle. I guess that's to allow the fighting compartment to be tiny and still get 10 degrees of gun depression. Very interesting how that has worked out. And it is a big novelty on the vehicle, and a lot of people, when I was live streaming and showing this tank off for the first time, were very impressed by the looks of the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. And do let me know in the comments if you think this vehicle is one of the most pretty tier 10 light tanks, or do you think it's a bit of an ugly duckling? You'll have to let me know. Oh, so I missed the shot there, and that's very unfortunate. Now I need to get into the dip. Hopefully I'm going to be able to engage him. Not quite reloaded yet, trying to run away from him. Ready to shoot him as he comes up over. Put one into him. Oh, it dips low and right and goes into his tracks. He comes over at 70 kilometers an hour, fires one down into me. That's rather unfortunate. Luckily, the artillery misses me. A quick use of our med kit, as we can see, starts a timer for 60 seconds for it to recharge, and that means that we can get away. Because while you're stunned by artillery, you're going to be 30% less mobile, and I probably wouldn't have the, well, I might still have the speed to be able to get away, but not quite. Look how we're gliding along the ledge there. Finally I found a limitation of the engine power and the ground resistances of this vehicle as I try to just bomb my way up that slope. I bet you these tier 10 light tanks are going to be able to get into whole new positions, and everyone out there who likes to try and hill climb to be able to get into those, should we say, clever use of game mechanics, as I think Paul called it the other day, positions, you're going to have to be a fan of these tier 10 lights. And I'm sure that people are going to be breaking some of the maps by especially the ones that have got some of the steep hills on to be able to get into whole new positions to engage their opponents effectively. And especially so in a tank like this with 10 degrees of gun depression, should be very effective indeed. So we put one into the side of the Jagdpanzer 100, the first shell missing unfortunately, but that one goes right in, 387 millimeters. And remember that this is effectively the sniping medium. This is 0.36 accuracy, the best of any of the tier 10 light tanks, and it also has, I believe, the second best penetration on its standard rounds. So if you do want to try and play a tier 10 light tank at mid to long range, which Wargaming are trying to do everything that they can to discourage, then this is going to be the best tier 10 light tank for that kind of playstyle. So if that's what you enjoy, go for it. So now we've got a T10 progressing over the ridge. Looks like he gets tracked and he uses his repair kit. That means that I should only need to be able to track him once more. There we go. And I decide to take advantage of his slow turret traverse to be able to get behind him. He can't turn his turret the whole way around. And wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. There we go. 304 damage dealt to him in the back there, putting our total, including the tracking, against him. We did pretty much 2/3 of his hit points there in assistance and also damage to that T10 great result. Now pressing on. Now this is where your mobility really does come in handy with the tier 10 light tanks. They just seem to be so darn good for finishing off your opponents, and I absolutely love them in this kind of position. Able to go around at 75 kilometers an hour, just like you saw in the T100 LT video. You can just get to where you need to go to pick up the scraps, and I expect that's probably going to be one of the most annoying things for players who don't want the tier 10 light tanks to go into the game, because frankly the mediums and the heavies are just not going to be fast enough to be able to get the last couple of tanks just like this STRV 103B and be able to finish him off. So we put one into the back of his tank, and he's got 2 health left, and I decide that I want to secure the kill. Hold on. Didn't I just do that in my last replay as well in the Lorraine 40T? Again, a little bit of mutually assured destruction here against the tier 10 Swedish tank destroyer, finishing off the final vehicle and picking up our 4th kill. So this was an ace tanker for the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, just under 60,000 credits received, 3,352 experience. And one thing I'd like to highlight is the repair cost of these tier 10 light tanks is quite a lot. 22,000 to be exact. And so that means if maybe you're playing a little bit too aggressive and you have a bad run of games, the light tanks could be a very nasty way to pick up an incredible repair bill. As even though I didn't fire any premium rounds this game, we also spent 20,000 credits on the 18 rounds that we fired, and even in my opinion, a great game like this, we only make 16,000 credits profit. So all in all, I think this tier 10 German light tank is looking like it's going to be a pretty darn good vehicle and lead on very well from the RU251 Speerpanzer. And for somebody who wants to be ludicrously fast and have incredible view range, as well as the best sniping 105mm gun on any tier 10 light tank, then this certainly might be the vehicle for you. But it also has some fairly steep competition with the WZ1321 and also the tier 10 American light tank, the Sheridan. And if you want to know more about those vehicles, just stick around. I'll be fully previewing those on the channel as well. And so hopefully you enjoyed this video, or maybe it was just useful to you. If it was, please consider giving it a like. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments what you think about the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen and how you think it stacks up compared to the other tier 10 light tanks. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.